pjnet.tv. Thursday night, it's 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Time for Elaine Martinez. She's standing by, and we have a bumper running. We have recording is on. We are streaming on all platforms. We'll switch to Studio 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening. Welcome to pjnet.tv. It is time to get started, and I'm running a little bit behind here, so let me do a little housekeeping real quick. There we go. I'm set. Let me get over here. Folks, tonight, as you can see from back there, Real Victory Radio is a partnership between Elaine Martinez and Latan Roland Murphy. Now, Latan has been our guest here before, but not Amy until tonight. By the way, if you are watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we really appreciate you tuning in. The people that you want to meet are over at pjnet.tv. So go over there, really. It's more fun. But you can stay. Anyway, thank you to all of you in the chat room at pjnet.tv, and all the way from the great state of Colorado, we have Amy standing by, and we will bring her on screen. Now, last time I spoke to her moments ago, she was typing invitations to come watch this. Did you get them out, Amy?
Kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
They can
I'm not
watch.
sure they're all right, but they'll find us.
They can watch the replay. You'll have all the time in the world after that. But anyway, Amy, we hadn't spoken since last December. And you got a couple things I'm aware of, and you may tell me of some others. You have a published book that I got to hear the story. The title sounds pretty intriguing. But you also have this intriguing radio ministry out in Colorado, and you have this connection to Latan. And I've always wanted to ask, how did the two of you get together to do something as solid as a weekly radio broadcast at what, 4 in the morning where you're at, something like that on Saturday?
No, it's actually 6 a.m. where I'm at, so thankfully. And you know what? Latan was on my show on Real Victory Radio in November in our first year, 2018. And the very first time that I met her, I just fell in love with her. I loved her heart. And when we finished the show, I was talking to my radio tech, and he said, "Y'all have a great chemistry." And I was like, that was really good, wasn't it? It just really flowed. We just really played off of each other well. And I had never met her at all. So it was very surprising. But I interviewed her about her book, Courageous Women of the Bible, which is an amazing book. And I'm sure that many of your listeners have read it, and it is an award-winning book. So time went by, and I prayed, and over the course of the next 6 months, I just kept feeling like she was the one, and I wanted to have a co-host. And so I contacted her and asked her what she thought about coming on the show as a co-host and more permanently. So we did a few more shows. We did 2 shows called Combating the Lies of the Enemy, or Did the Enemy Really Say That? And people really liked them. And she was like, yeah, I think I'm comfortable with this. And so in July of 2019, we stepped into she came on as a co-host to Real Victory Radio in Colorado. And she's actually in her state of North Carolina while we record. We record in the studio. It's pre-recorded and then played on Saturdays. So we are not really in the studio together, although we wish we were, but it feels like it.
So how many episodes had you done before you ever met her in person? Or have you ever met her in person?
Before I had done 52, I had done a whole year of shows, and then we started doing shows together. We started doing shows in July, and I met her about 3 weeks later when I flew out to July for a writers conference, the She Speaks conference for Proverbs 31 Ministries. And I spent the day with her, and it was the first day we met, and it was really sweet. So that's the only time we have ever physically been in the same location.
So you weren't sorority sisters in college or anything?
No. Oh, no. But you know what? We always tease. In fact, just this past week, she said we were talking on the phone and and texting and things like that we do throughout the week. And she said, we would have been such good friends back then. So we're just two peas in a pod in so many ways. It's a very God ordained relationship that I didn't know that I needed, and I love it.
You did 52 episodes and then a few more, and then Latan came on, and this summer will be your second year, right?
We will have finished 2 years in July, on July 4th weekend, I think.
Okay. So we didn't practice this. This is unscripted. Tell me the most awkward moment that comes to mind in that many maybe
episodes?
maybe right now.
Maybe right now. You know what? The most awkward moment probably was, one time with Latan, I could tell that she was, and this wasn't necessarily awkward, so this may not be answering your question, but I could tell that she was having a coughing fit. And we are so connected that she didn't say anything. She didn't send me a text or anything on the phone, but I could tell that something was not right. And she had this really bad cough, and I just kept talking. And after the show, she was like, how did you know? And I was like, I just knew. So that's not awkward, but it probably felt awkward for her because she was like, I can't stop coughing.
Yeah.
But for me, I think being alone in the studio when I did my very first non-author interview, because typically the first year I did a lot of author interviews where I interviewed friends who had books coming out, and we just had fun and interviewed them about their books and chatted on the show. And so being alone in the studio and talking to myself only, basically, it was really awkward because I don't have a background in radio at all. It was something that God literally just placed in my lap.
Literally.
That's a whole nother story. Yeah.
Okay, we'll save that one for next time then. Let me ask you an easier question, I hope. Think back of some of those affirming moments, that you just feel like, wow, I'm doing something and the Lord is rewarding it and blessing it. It's when little kids ask you for when little kids ask you for your autograph.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. I have had a lot of moments where God has just said, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And really that story that we just said we would save is one of the most affirming. When I had no background in radio, I didn't even know that radio was something that I would be interested in. I had this feeling one night and just really felt like, after I had spent the evening with a girlfriend talking about ministry and things, and came home from that, and I was like, I wonder if I'm supposed to do radio. And I didn't know where that came from or anything. And I prayed into it, and so much so that God kept on me, and he said, you need to talk to your husband about it. And I'm like, I'm not talking to him about this. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about here. And so I finally did. I relented, and I'm like, all right, Lord, I'll talk to him. So I went to my husband. I'm like, hey, what would you think if I would ever thought about going into radio? And he's like, no. What? If I hadn't been drinking coffee, I probably would have spit it out. Yeah. The backstory to that is that he's been in business for himself for 15 years and had a few businesses before that. So for him to just shut me down cold, I was like, what? I've always supported you. But anyway, the next day he came back to me and goes, I really shut you down. And I said, yeah, you did, but that's okay, because I'm good with that. And he said, absolutely. If it comes about, we'll talk about it. And about 6 weeks went by, and I got a random phone call. I did not tell anybody anything except for my husband. And about 6 weeks went by, and I had been doing a Facebook Live series on my book, Becoming a Victory Girl, with some interviews I've been doing on Facebook Live. And I got a phone call, and this guy said, hey, this is Mark from KRKS Radio here at 94.7 The Word. have you ever thought about doing radio? I was like, what? And I said, well, actually, I have. It just came right out of my mouth. I didn't hesitate. I didn't, stop. And so that was really very affirming. And there's more to that story, but he had heard my interviews on Facebook Live, and I had been on a friend's show, and he just thought that he should come.
He connected the dots. Your book has an intriguing title, and it's hard to look at you and imagine, having been through battle or adversity. If you have, you came through it pretty darn good. But tell us about the title of your book and what inspired it.
The book is called Becoming a Victory Girl. I do have a copy here, and it's the subtitle is Staking Your Claim in the Kingdom. And yes, I have been through a lot of adversity. Not, so much. There have all been things that I brought on to myself, which is not always, that's not a fun thing to talk about ever. But I led a pretty wild lifestyle as a young woman, and knew the Lord but wasn't following him, and had to really overcome a lot of things to get to where I am today. And I think we all continue to face struggles throughout our lives. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some of them have more weight on us than others, and they might not have that same kind of weight on somebody else, the exact same struggle. But Becoming a Victory Girl was just a message that God wrote on my heart over a period of time where I was just learning how to battle it out.
It's hard to, some people are put in situations they had no choice, child abuse, things like that. But as a young woman or as a young man, by the way, where were you when I were looking for that kind of thing? Where were you? But we make bad choices, and God is very merciful and very gracious and always right there. And I look back on my life with a similar gaze. Okay, and I wonder sometimes, was that really me? Because I can't imagine being that stupid. To be honest, I'm not a stupid person. I fly airplanes, and program computers. I'm not stupid, but yet I look back and every once in a while I struggle with Satan reminding me of who I used to be. Does he ever sit on your shoulder and whisper that crap to you too?
Yes, he does. And there was a period of time in my life where he was just on the loudspeaker all the time, just constantly berating me with, this is who you are, you can never change. And I really did believe, there was a point in my life where I really did believe that I could not change. And what I came to find out was that was actually the truth. I couldn't change, but I could with his help.
Okay, I'll buy that. And I don't struggle with the change. What I struggle with is the feeling of unworthiness, to minister, to work in the kingdom. Satan's always saying, they don't know that about you.
That is one of his tools from long ago. That is just something that he continues to use. I think he's been using that since the Garden of Eden, that, they don't know that about you. They don't know that you ate that apple,
right.
That kind of thing. And I think that really that is a tactic that is it works really well, first of all, and he seems to do really well with that. But it's one that we can really know is not the voice of God, because God sees who we are in the future, not who we were.
Well, and at the academic level, I can, offer up all kind of apologetics and scriptures and proof texts, to negate that. But yet, when you're alone and he starts that whisper, so you have that book. It's been out 2 years now?
I released it in October of 2017. I did a real push I self-published this book. So in 2018, January 2018, I did a book club online, started doing all these interviews, and really went after letting people know about it. And so it's been out for 2 years. It's hard to believe.
Are all the gory details in the book?
You know what? This book is not very personal on a personal level. It has been said that this book is a field manual for becoming battle ready, to be able to fight the battle and become victorious. It's more of a field guide to spiritual warfare than it is the personal details of my life. But I am writing that and hoping to get a book contract for that. So
I'll buy it. I'll take it. You know. So you've been doing radio, and by the way, I used to work in radio when I was in college.
You have a great radio voice.
Well, thank you. I was living for the world now. I mean, I was a Christian. I was saved. But if you would have known me, there was no evidence of that. In fact, there was a lot of evidence to the contrary. And so I literally worked part-time at a 100,000-watt rock station in Tallahassee, Florida. Number one station. I mean, and I'm like, how did this happen? Now, I had done a few shows on a little AM daytimer in my hometown, you know. But I guess the point being is, little did I know. I was certainly living for the world. Little did I know that God was training me, because you remember the first time you step behind that mic, it's very, very intimidating, and learning to in radio, you have to learn to be handed a piece of paper. You know, they'll just slide a piece of paper, and you're going to read that, and you've got to sound conversational. And it amazes me, and I shouldn't think this way. I shouldn't even say it. But, you know, when you're in a small group Bible study and people read scriptures. Now, these are people with IQs north of 100, okay? They're intelligent, educated people. But I'm like, you can't read, can you? It's the fear of speaking and being heard. Do you remember that first time you were behind a mic?
I do. And, you know, the one thing about pre-recording shows is that it's not, I mean, we don't do any redos. There's not redos. There's not any editing. It is what it is when it comes out. So when you hear our radio show on the podcast, that's the uncut version.
Raw. Yeah, it's raw.
It's raw. It's raw. We don't get to do, I mean, unless something really catastrophic happened, like somebody threw up or something. We could
dog barking or
yeah. Well, the dog's not at the studio, so that's good. But yes, unless it was something catastrophic like that, then we could redo it. But for the most part, there is no redo. So I don't necessarily have that kind of pressure, but the pressure to make sure that I'm in the timelines of, you've got 4 minutes left. I get a 4 minute, 2 minute, and 1 minute thing. And I know I have got to wrap up. And there were times in the beginning where I did not have the feel for what a minute feels like. And I definitely have a better idea of what that feels like.
Have you noticed, like I have, with everybody in quarantine, so to speak, or sequester, all of a sudden people are grabbing their phones and speaking to their phones and sharing the word, and some of them, you can tell they're just falling apart inside, but you know what? They're doing it.
You know, I still get nervous just about every time I do one of these things, or, you know, speaking in front of a group of people. It is not something that is just a natural thing for me. It's completely out of my comfort zone, but I have learned so much in the last 2 years of really stepping out and getting ahead of that fear and not letting that fear hold me down or back.
I've heard a lot, you know, recently, from last night to today, you know, I hear a lot about fear. And I know that fear is something that is often used by the enemy. People are out there right now afraid. They're afraid to go outside. They're afraid to talk to people. They're afraid to get on their phone and do a broadcast. What would you say to all these people about fear?
I would say that fear is absolutely a liar. I mean, you know, there's that song that's out right now. I can't even think of who sings it, but it's a great song. And it is true. Fear is a liar. Fear does not originate with God. He is not going to put that fear in us, because the word says that his love covers all that fear. It cast it away. And so when we feel fear, we can know that it's not from the Lord. Now, it's natural. I'm not saying it's not natural to be afraid to step out and, do new things, but we can learn how to utilize that fear to work with us instead of working against us. And that's not an easy, I can sit here and say that, but you just have to literally do stuff. You have to keep stepping out and keep doing stuff until you're not so afraid.
It's well, you're natural. You're a fearless God. You're a God-fearing woman. By the way, for your edification, we are born with 3 fears: the fear of falling, the fear of darkness, and the fear of a sudden loud noise. All other fear is therefore learned. We've learned to be afraid. Which, if you're about to step on a rattlesnake, is a good idea. You should, but
Yeah,
Satan,
some fear's really good.
it's just been kind of a recurring theme lately here at pjnet.tv. Satan, folks, is using fear. I'm not saying that some fear isn't real. I'm not saying that some fear isn't justified. But when fear gets to the point that it paralyzes us and hinders our ministry, hinders our purpose for which God has us here. Well, let's see. I'm preaching now. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for joining us tonight. To be honest, folks, we had a vacancy tonight, and Amy, I just kind of contacted her. I don't like to contact people in desperation because they can sense it, But I just have to just fold my cards and say, look, I'm hurting. I need somebody. Amy, you stepped in there, you did it, and I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your ministry. And folks, if you haven't encountered Amy, Elaine Martinez, there's actually another one in there, Amy Elaine Ward Martinez on Facebook.
That's my maiden name.
Yeah, I figured that. It's too many initials, so I couldn't even initial that. That's too many. That
won't fit on lot.
And if you notice the little credit card printed receipts you sign, they're getting smaller and smaller, and my eyeballs are getting worse and worse. It's like, no, we need to go the other way. We need bigger. We need big font.
Yes.
Here, just enter your PIN. It's like, where? I can't do that. Amy, you're a champ. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we appreciate it. And maybe we can hear that long story next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy, and I appreciated you giving me a call yesterday. So thanks.
All right. See you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Amy Martinez, again, long list. Hey, folks, listen. I got to go, but I promise I'll be back. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour, and I won't be by myself. I've got a posse that's coming with me. J.D. Winninger will join us from around the Cross W Ranch. I've got to redo this whole studio, so I got to go, but I want to leave you with 2 questions. First question is this: what is the boldest thing you've ever done for Jesus Christ? The second question is, how long ago was that? It is a challenge that I face daily, and I pray that all of us would accept that challenge to never be satisfied with either answer. All right. That is a wrap. Good job. Hey, listen.